Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I've been working WWE security for over 10 years. Long nights, empty arenas, the occasional drunk fan trying to sneak back in. It's all part of the job. I've seen some weird things, heard some weirder stories. Wrestlers are a superstitious bunch, and arenas are full of ghosts, if you believe the talk. But I never believed in ghosts. Not until that night. It was a SmackDown taping, just another Tuesday night show. The crowd had poured out, the last few die-hard fans hanging around the parking lot hoping for a glimpse of their favorite wrestlers. The ring crew was tearing down, loading the trucks for the next town. I was doing my usual rounds, walking the perimeter, making sure nobody had snuck back inside. The place always felt different when it was empty. Still smelled of sweat, beer, and popcorn, but the energy was gone. The cheers, the music, the pyro, erased like they'd never been there. I was halfway across the arena floor when I heard it. A whisper. It came from above, from the rafters. I stopped cold, tilting my head toward the ceiling. Maybe it was the wind, or some leftover sound bouncing off the steel beams. But then I heard it again. My name. The voice was deep, raspy, almost a growl. I turned on my flashlight and aimed at the catwalks high above the ring. That's when I saw him, a shadowy figure, standing perfectly still, right in the exact spot where Sting used to perch back in the 90s, up in the darkness, watching the ring like a predator stalking prey. I swallowed hard, trying to convince myself it was a trick of the light. Some stagehand, maybe. Someone from the crew messing around. But he didn't move. Didn't acknowledge me at all. Just stood there, watching. A slow, creeping chill crawled up my spine. I fumbled for my radio. "Hey, someone's in the rafters," I said, my voice lower than I intended. Static. Then my partner's voice. "What?" "There's someone in the rafters," I repeated, keeping my eyes locked on the figure. Silence. Then, the arena lights flickered. For half a second, everything went dark. When the lights snapped back on, the figure was gone. I sucked in a breath, my heart hammering against my ribs. I knew what I saw. I wasn't about to brush it off. I took off toward the stairs that led to the catwalks, my boots echoing against the concrete. My flashlight bounced with every step, sending shadows skittering across the walls. When I got to the top, I expected to hear footsteps, rustling, something, but it was dead silent. The air was heavy, thick, like the kind of heat that rolls in before a storm. I stepped onto the catwalk carefully, gripping the railing. The whole thing creaked under my weight. Then I saw them. Boot prints. Old, dusty, pressed into the grime-covered metal. I crouched down, running my fingers over them. They were real. But something was wrong. The prints led to the very edge of the platform, right to the spot where I'd seen the figure standing. But there were no prints leading away. I straightened up, my breath coming fast. I turned in a slow circle, flashlight sweeping the metal walkway. Empty. No ladders. No ropes. No way down. I swallowed, my mouth dry as sandpaper. I felt like something was still up there, watching me, waiting. I backed away, keeping my eyes on the spot where the prints ended. Then I turned and ran. I didn't stop until I was back on solid ground, back in a locker room hallway where the lights were bright and the air felt normal again. My partner was waiting for me. "Saw anything?" he asked, half distracted, scrolling through his phone. I opened my mouth, closed it, shook my head. "Nah," I muttered. "Nothing." I didn't tell him, didn't tell anyone. But after that night, I refused to close the arena alone. Story 2. You don't forget the moments that make your blood run cold. They don't fade like old dreams or get lost in the fog of memory. They stick like a splinter under the skin, deep and unreachable. I've got plenty of those moments from my years working in WWE, but one in particular still haunts me. It was in Texas, at an old arena we'd used countless times before. The night had been routine, another live event wrapped, another crowd sent home happy. The wrestlers had already left, the ring crew was finishing up, and the production team had powered down most of the equipment. I was doing my usual rounds, making sure nothing had been left behind before heading out. That's when I saw the door. It was at the far end of the locker room hallway, where the lighting was always a little too dim and the air smelled like old sweat and damp concrete. It was an old storage room, one we barely used. I passed 100 times before, but tonight something about it felt off. I stopped in front of it. The handle looked worn, the paint around it chipped from years of use. But the thing that caught my attention was the feeling. You ever step into a place and feel like you've walked into someone else's space? Like the air is charged, thick with something unseen? That's how it felt standing there, like I wasn't supposed to be near that door. I reached out and tried the handle. Locked. I should have just walked away. But then, knock, knock, knock. Slow, even, measured. I took a step back, my pulse quickening. "Hey," I called out, forcing my voice to sound normal. "Who's in there?" Silence. I glanced down the hallway. Empty. The last few guys from the crew were still in the main area, nowhere near here. I turned back to the door and knocked 3 times. Nothing. I exhaled, shaking my head. Maybe the old pipes were settling. Maybe I was just tired. Then, bang. The door rattled so hard it nearly jumped off the hinges. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. That wasn't pipes. That wasn't settling. That was someone or something slamming into the door from the other side. I fumbled for my radio, my fingers clumsy and slick with sweat. Before I could speak, before I could even form a thought, the door creaked open. Not fast, not like something had forced it open. No, this was slow, like someone was inviting me in. I stared. The room was dark, except for a sliver of moonlight filtering through a high, dusty window. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of old wood, and something else, something sharp, metallic. And then I saw it. An old, cracked mirror leaning against the back wall. At first, that was all I noticed. Just a mirror, covered in a fine layer of dust, reflecting the dim light in broken shards. But then my eyes adjusted, and my stomach clenched. There were handprints on the glass. Fresh, wet, smudged. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Something had touched that mirror. And then, as I stood frozen in the doorway, the air shifted. The temperature dropped, and I felt it, a presence. Not just the feeling of being watched. No, this was different. This was being studied. Like something just beyond my vision was waiting to see what I'd do next. I took a step back. The floor creaked, and then the handprint started to fade. Not all at once. Slowly, as if whatever had made them was pulling back, retreating. The prints smeared, dissolving into the glass like breath evaporating from a cold window. That was it for me. I turned and walked out. Not running, not screaming, just leaving. Because something told me that if I acknowledged it, if I gave whatever was in that room any more of my attention, it would notice me too. I told one of the crew guys that the storage room needed to be locked. He nodded, not questioning it, and I never spoke about it again. But sometimes when I pass that hallway in other arenas, I feel it again, that weight in the air, that charged silence. And I know whatever was in that room that night, it's still watching. Story 3. I've worked in WWE's production crew for years, running sound in arenas packed with thousands of screaming fans. My job was simple. Cue the entrance themes, make sure the pyro synced with the beats, handle the audio for promos. It was a dream job until one night in 2013 when something happened that I still can't explain. That night, we just finished a house show in St. Louis. The crowd was gone. The ring crew was tearing everything down, and most of the production team had already packed up. I was alone in the production truck, running through the final audio files before shutting the system down. The inside of the truck was dim, bathed in the soft glow of the monitors. Outside, I could hear the dull thuds of road cases being rolled away, the occasional shout from a crew member. I was clicking through the playlists when the speakers crackled to life. A sharp burst of static, like a mic being switched on. At first, I thought someone had left their headset on, but all the live feeds were disabled. Then, beneath the static, I heard something else. Music. At first, it was faint, distorted, just a few deep bass notes, the kind that rumble through your chest when the speakers are loud enough. But as it grew clearer, my stomach dropped. I knew this song, Chris Benoit's theme. I froze. We hadn't played that song in years. Not since 2007. After what happened, WWE erased him from everything. No tributes, no mentions. His music, his matches gone. The audio files weren't even in the system anymore. They hadn't been for a long time. Yet, here it was, playing loud and clear. I scrambled for the controls, trying to mute the track, but nothing responded. The buttons did nothing. The volume sliders were stuck. The software was frozen. The music kept going. It sounded wrong, warped, slower than it should be, as if it was playing from some old, decayed tape. The bass notes hit too deep, rattling the truck's frame. The guitar riffs dragged, stretching longer than they should. And then, the whisper, a low, gravelly voice. He never left. Every hair on my arm stood on end. The voice hadn't come from the speakers. It had come from behind me. I spun around, expecting to see someone standing there. The truck was empty. Just rows of equipment, monitors, soundboards. No one was there. And yet, I felt it. That awful, prickling sensation of being watched. The music cut out instantly. Dead silence. I sat there, hands shaking, staring at the screen. I checked the system logs, searching for any trace of the file. Nothing. There was no record of the song ever playing. No file in the archives. No corrupted track hidden somewhere. It was as if it had never happened. I told myself it was a glitch. Maybe some old file had somehow resurfaced. Maybe the system had glitched out. Maybe I was just tired. That's what I told myself. until it happened again. A few weeks later, we were at another house show, different city. I was backstage, passing by gorilla position, when I heard it. That same deep, rumbling bass. Benoit's theme, playing. I turned the corner and saw one of the techs standing at the soundboard, pale as a ghost, staring at the screen. He was frantically pressing buttons, trying to stop the track, but nothing was working. I ran over, but as soon as I touched the board, silence. The song was gone. He looked at me wide-eyed. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. I nodded. Neither of us spoke about it again. But I swear, sometimes when I'm backstage at events, when the arena is empty and the lights are low, I hear it. That deep, rumbling bass. That slow, distorted guitar. And the whisper. He never left.